How you doing? I'm Sean McVeigh with Sean's Outdoor Adventures, and in this video I am going to show you how to quickly tune a BowTech Range 6 or Range 7. And the very first thing I do when I get it out of the box or whatever is I check the cams, and I want to make sure there's no cam lean at all. That's what my benchmark and starting point. So I'll look down and you can typically see if there's a little bit of cam lean or not. And let me say, if there's cam lean this way, that means I need to bring it back. So in order to bring it back, I need to add twist to this side of the yoke on that cam. So by adding twist, it's going to bring that cam back in. Boom, I want it right on. And I typically just eyeball it. There are people that use special types of level. They'll put a level on here and shoot it down to the other end and see where it's hitting. But I just eyeball it, and I'll do that on both ends as the starting point. Another thing I do is just check the time. There's little timing marks on the cam. There's a dot to the right and to the left of the cam, and that cable should run right between the two. You check that on both cams. I also like to measure the tiller measurement on both, and I also like to crank the limb bolts in all the way to max weight to get started. And then when I'm all finished getting everything perfectly tuned, then I back it out to my desired weight and check it all again. Once my cam lean is leveled out, and of course you want to make sure you're using an approved bow press in order to do this. If you're not using an approved bow press, you could damage the bow or void your warranty, or both. So anyway, once the cam lean is taken out, I then set my arrow rest and my nock point. When I put my arrow rest on, I make sure there's a little bit of clearance from the bottom of the rest to the shelf of the riser. I don't want it coming in contact with the riser. It could cause problems with the rest. To set the horizontal alignment of my rest, one of the tricks I've always used is simply take a piece of twine and I tape it to the middle of the top limb bolt and run it down to the middle of the bottom limb bolt and tape it on there. I then take a cut arrow, I put it on the string, and I look to line up that front string that I've put on here with my bow string. And then I take a cut arrow and line it up with the center of the string. That typically gets me very close to center shot, if not right on. Another thing you can do to try to verify that your center shot is on is measure the distance from the side of the riser to the center of the shaft in the front and the back of the arrow. If that measurement changes, if it's larger in the front, that means your arrow is pointed too much this way and your rest needs to be moved back in. So when you're setting the nock, always make sure if you're using a drop away rest, you hold it in the upright position. And for a BowTech, you want to put it square. So you can even use something like a speed square. A arrow with no fletch is going to help. And you can put your speed square on here and just make sure that it is square, the arrow is square. I like to, before I have my D-loop on, take a silver Sharpie and mark above and below the arrow as reference points, and then I tie on my D-loop. What I also use very regularly is levels, and if you have one of these, I never clip it onto the serving because the serving's never long enough to attach this to. If you clip this onto the serving on one end, like the top end, and the bottom end is on the string itself, it's a smaller diameter, and so the level actually comes in a little bit and throws off your reading. So what I do is I gently hold it against the string. I don't push hardly, just gently, and then I get my voice set so I get that plumb, and then when that's on, then I take this, I hang that on the arrow, make sure the arrow is in the upright position, and make sure that that is plumb as well. So that's just another technique, but ultimately we want to start off by setting the arrow square on a BowTech Range 6 or Range 7. Another method you can use is making sure the rest is in the upright position. You can measure the front and the back of the arrow to make sure that it's the same distance off of the riser. The only challenge with that, and let me zoom out so you can see this, wrong direction. The only challenge with that is when you're making that kind of thing, you have to keep your head in the same perspective. So if my head's here when I read the back and then I come up like this and read the front, that changes the angle of how I'm seeing the marks on the ruler, and that can actually throw everything off. So even if you have something more precise than a ruler, and some kind of a gauge, you still have to have your head in the same position when making that reading, and make sure the rest is in the upright position if you're using this style of a drop away. Okay, once I have everything, all this set up, I want to check the timing of my cams, and to do that I'm going to use my draw board. So in this situation, my bottom cam is slightly under rotated than my top cam. So my top cam comes in contact with the cable and the bottom is just slightly off. What you'll do in that situation is shorten the cable length on the top cam. So whichever cam comes in contact first, you add twist to that to the cable that goes to that cam, and that's going to bring the timing back in where they're both hitting at the same time. And if it's the bottom cam that's hitting first, you'll add a little twist to that cam. I typically always add twist rather than take it out, because when you're dealing with a bow, very often if something goes out, it's because something stretched a little bit. I mean, although these materials are great, it is possible for them to stretch a little bit to bring them back into specification. I like to add a little bit of twist. So once your cam timing is on, the next thing I want to do is go ahead and shoot through paper to see where my tears are at and if I need to add or remove any type of cam lean. Now in this situation, I was actually working on the tuning of this bow the other day, and I'm a little pressed for time now, so I'm going to show you some of the tear marks I had and some of the adjustments that need to be made if you're getting similar tear marks. Alright, so as it turns out, I took down the paper I had where I was getting my tears, and this one, most of these shots are pretty much close to bullet hole. But let me explain what happens here. So let's say your arrow comes off the bow and the fletching side is to the right of the point of the arrow. So when the arrow goes through the paper, your point mark is here, and then it tears this way and you see the marks from the fletching to the right. All you need to do is add twist to the right yoke on both the top and the bottom cam of your BowTech. So if it's a very dramatic tear, you're going to actually add more twist. If it's just a slight tear, start off with a half a twist on each, and just be real careful as you make these increments. You're going to see the fletching is going to come back in alignment when you get the correct amount of cam lean to adjust that. Two quick points of clarification too that I want to throw in here. It's extremely important when you're paper tuning that you're not torquing the bow at all from one shot to the next. So your hand, you have to be super relaxed with the grip, and you can't be modifying your grip from one shot to the next. You got to be very consistent, and I strive to put the pressure from my hand right in the center of the back of the grip, so that if you put too much pressure from the side, it can torque the bow. So that's very important. And when I say the right hand side of the bow, I'm referring to the right as the bow is facing away from you, as if you were taking a shot. So if your arrow is tearing this way and you need to add twist here and here, so right side is this side that I'm referring to. Now if you're getting a vertical tear, it could either be because you're not using the proper spine for the weight that you're shooting, so check that first, because you don't want to go making a whole bunch of adjustments if it's your spine is not proper for the bow. If your spine is proper and you're getting vertical tear issues, that's possibly because, although maybe you tried to get your nock point square, maybe it is still a little bit off. So in a situation where if your nock point isn't actually perfectly square for the way the binary cam system works, let's give you an example. Let's say your fletching is coming off high, so your point enters here and you're getting the fletch tear up here. What you'll do in that scenario is move the rest. You'll always move, when you're going vertically, you'll always want to move the point toward the fletching, so you'll actually move your rest up, okay? And if your point is coming through high and your fletch is low, you'll move the rest down. Make sure that if you do move the rest down, that it's not going to be slamming into the riser shelf. You may actually have to then move the nock point up instead, move your D-loop if that's what you're using. And so anyway, also anytime you make any changes with this style of rest, let me grab the bow real quick. When you have a drop away rest that activates with a string like this, any of these adjustments can change the way this is going to disengage. So before making a shot, double check to make sure that it comes into the full upright position on this. This is a ripcord ace. There are two little arrow heads that point to each other, and if it's in the upright position, they will be pointing at each other. If it's not all the way there, they won't be, and so the rest will not disengage properly. And I do admit that while I was tuning this bow, I forgot to check that one time, and the adjustments did cause the rest to go out of that alignment, and this is what happens to your fletch. You'll get, black marks on the fletch from hitting the rest, and that's what you want to avoid. So there you have it. That is how you tune the BowTech binary cam system that you have on the Range 6 and Range 7. It's a little bit of a seesaw process. Sometimes you can add something, do something, and it could throw things off a little bit. You have your peep sight in. If you didn't tie your peep sight in right off the bat, when you tie it in, it does shorten the string a little bit when you pull that tighter together, and so that could throw off your cam timing even a hair. It all depends on all the other factors. So you got to go back and then check your cam timing. You fix that. Maybe you need to add a little cam lean, and somehow in the process there was other little adjustments that were made and it threw the cam timing off, so now you got to go back and shorten one of those cables. So it's a little back and forth. Just give yourself a little bit of time, and as you keep whittling it down, you'll get it right in there perfect and be shooting some bullet holes. And that's really what you want, because especially if you're hunting and you're shooting broadheads, you want that arrow coming off the bow perfectly, so that you get the best flight you can possibly get, especially for a hunting situation, but any situation. You want that arrow coming off strong and good. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're not currently a subscriber, I ask you to subscribe. Click the bell icon so that you get notified when I do uploads and all that great stuff. Take care. God bless you.